So we have the function f of x equals 1 over x squared plus 1, and we'll find the domain of this function. So when I say what's the domain of this function, the question really is about the values of x that we can plug into this function to get a real number, a valid answer. So what are the values of x is what we're thinking about. When you see a term containing x in the denominator, you always have to wonder if there is an x that we can plug in and make the denominator 0. Remember that if you have a 1 over 0, it's undefined. So we need to make sure that the denominator doesn't become 0. If the denominator is not equal to 0, then the expression is perfectly fine. The only time that the expression is not defined is when the denominator is equal to 0. So what we're going to do is find the values at which the denominator, so this is the denominator, equals 0. So we're going to find the values at which the denominator is 0, so that way we can take the set of real numbers and exclude the set of numbers that will make the denominator 0. So these are the numbers that make the denominator equal to 0. So that is what we're trying to do. Okay, so we're going to find these exceptions and throw them out of the set of real numbers, and that would be the domain of our function. So let's try to solve this. X squared plus 1 equals 0. We subtract 1 on both sides to get x squared equals negative 1. We solve the equation by taking square root on both sides. So remember, when you take the square root on both sides, what you need to do is put a plus or minus square root of whatever is on the right hand side. Now notice that square root of a negative number is not a real number. It is defined as being plus or minus I, which is an imaginary number. So therefore it is not real. So what does that mean? There is no exception that is a real number. Basically, there is no real number that we can plug into this equation x squared plus 1 equals 0 that would satisfy this equation. We cannot find a real number because the number that we've solved for is imaginary. So basically this is a blank, which means there are no exceptions. We can plug in any real number that we want, just any real number that we want, and it would never make the denominator 0. So the domain of the function is all real numbers, negative infinity to positive infinity. You can plug in any number you want and you'll never find that the denominator is equal to 0.